December 1939, Finnish Lapland, Winter War. The forest was silent, thick with snow, except for the crunch of boots against frost and the distant rumble of artillery. Trees bore heavy layers of white, their branches drooping under the weight. It was here, in the frozen expanse of the Karelian front, that one man would change the course of the war. Simo Häyhä, a quiet farmer and hunter from WWII, Finland, had taken position on a ridge overlooking the advancing Soviet troops. He adjusted his white camouflage, his breath rising in thin clouds, and loaded his bolt-action rifle, carefully checking the iron sights. He whispered to himself, "One shot, one kill, and then vanish." Nearby, a fellow Finnish soldier, Eero, peeked through his binoculars. "Simo, they're moving fast. Do you really think you can stop them?" Simo didn't answer immediately. He merely focused, scanning the tree line. His reputation was not yet known. Soon, it would be feared across entire divisions. The Soviets approached in tight formations, confident in their numbers. Tanks rumbled behind the infantry, snow kicking up in white clouds. They believed they could crush the thin Finnish lines, but they were about to be shocked. Simo's finger rested lightly on the trigger. He remembered hunting in these forests as a boy. Patience, precision, and silence were everything. Every movement had to be calculated. A twig snapping, a footprint, or a cloud of breath could reveal him. He whispered again, almost a mantra. Wait, aim, fire. Hours passed. The Soviet troops moved steadily closer. Häyhä fired his first shot. A red flare of blood bloomed in the distance. One soldier fell without warning. Others froze, searching for the source. The forest remained silent. Eero's eyes widened. "What? How did he—" Simo calmly reloaded. "They don't see me. They can't see me. They think it's the wind." This was the beginning of the legend. Each kill added to his count, each shot perfectly placed in the skull or chest. In the bitter cold, he moved almost invisibly through the snow, a phantom of death. The Soviets were shocked not only by the precision of the attacks, but by the sheer invisibility of the shooter. The Finnish command observed from a ridge farther back. Colonel Lorry, veteran of the first battles, spoke to his aides. "He's something else," he muttered. "A single man, and he's stopping entire patrols." His aide frowned. "But is it sustainable? One man against thousands?" Lorry shook his head. "When the man is Häyhä, perhaps it is." Simo crawled forward inch by inch, hiding in snowdrifts, using every mound, every bush, every shadow as cover. The rifle was an extension of his body, the iron sights, the eyes of death. He adjusted his scarf over his face, ensuring no skin showed. Every move was deliberate. By mid-morning, dozens of Soviets lay on the snow, the survivors retreating, bewildered. They believed they were being attacked by an unseen force, a ghost that could not be traced or countered. They began calling him the White Death, though they did not yet know his name. Simo paused, adjusting his rifle, teeth chattering from the cold. A fellow soldier, young and nervous, whispered, How many has he?" Simo did not answer. He simply scanned the horizon again. Another patrol would move soon. Another shot would follow. His calm, methodical efficiency became his greatest weapon. To the Soviets, it was almost supernatural. How could one man in the forest cause such fear? As afternoon approached, a Soviet officer attempted to organize a counterattack. They believed numbers would overwhelm any sniper, even a skilled one. The officer shouted orders, urging his men forward. Simo took aim at a machine gunner who exposed himself for a split second. A single shot rang out. The machine gunner fell. Chaos erupted behind him as the Soviets tried to find cover. Nearby, Eero shook his head in disbelief. He just missed nothing, Simo muttered, almost to himself. Every shot counts. One miss, and we die. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next sound. Every footstep, every movement of branches could betray the hunter or the hunted. Night approached. The battle slowed, but the fear persisted. Soviet troops whispered about the invisible marksman who had stopped their advance. In their minds, the White Death was everywhere, yet nowhere. They were shocked by a single human being, armed with only a rifle and patience. Simo found a small hollow to rest. His hands were numb, his body stiff, but his mind remained alert. He cleaned his rifle, checked his ammunition, and planned for the next day. Even in exhaustion, he felt a grim satisfaction. Each kill was for Finland, for survival, for the defense of his homeland. Nearby, Eero asked quietly, "Do you think they'll stop coming?" Simo looked toward the horizon, the endless forest blanketed in white. "They'll come," he said. "But they will be shocked again, and they will remember the White Death." The legend of Simo Häyhä, the sniper who would shock entire Soviet divisions, had begun. Every step, every shot, every hidden movement in the snow would soon become part of the stories whispered among soldiers. Some would fear him, some would admire him, but all would remember the day one man alone could turn the tide of battle. As darkness fell, the forest held its silence. Simo Häyhä disappeared into the snow, a phantom whose rifle would echo through history, shocking enemies and inspiring his comrades alike. December 1940, Karelian Front, Finland. Morning broke over the frozen landscape, the snow reflecting pale sunlight. The forest remained eerily quiet, save for distant artillery and the faint crunch of boots in the distance. Simo Häyhä moved carefully through the snow, his white camouflage blending seamlessly with the terrain. Every step was deliberate, every breath controlled. Nearby, Private Eero, still shaken from the previous day's horror, whispered, "Simo, do you ever get tired?" Simo adjusted his rifle, eyes scanning the tree line. "Tired? Perhaps. But the forest doesn't wait. The Soviets won't wait either. I either work or die." The Soviets were regrouping, unaware of how close they were to fear incarnate. They believed they could advance with overwhelming numbers, but Simo had already begun to plan the next ambush. He spotted a Soviet patrol moving cautiously along a frozen stream. The men laughed, unaware that every movement was being counted. Häyhä's lips pressed together in concentration. "Breathe," he murmured to himself. "Wait for the right moment." He aimed carefully, adjusting for distance, wind, and snow. Each calculation was precise, a combination of skill, instinct, and experience. A single misjudgment could mean his death, or failure to protect his comrades. The first shot rang out, precise and deadly. A Soviet soldier fell without a sound. Panic rippled through the group. They spun around, searching for the source, but Häyhä was already repositioning. Eero watched in disbelief. "It's like he disappears into the snow." Simo didn't answer. He was already lining up his next shot, silently delivering death again and again, shocking the enemy. By midday, dozens of Soviets had fallen. The survivors began whispering about a ghost in the forest, someone, or something, that could strike without warning. Rumors spread quickly, feeding fear as effectively as bullets. Colonel Laurie, observing from a ridge, shook his head. One man is holding the line. This is beyond ordinary skill." He shocks everyone who sees him in action. His aide looked concerned. But can one man do this indefinitely? Laurie's eyes followed Häyhä moving through the trees. Perhaps, until the forest or the enemy catches him. But for now, he is the storm. Simo crawled through deep snowdrifts, moving silently. His rifle was ready, iron sights trained on a distant officer directing troops. He aimed for the heart, steadying the weapon as the cold bit into his fingers. He fired. The officer collapsed. Command and morale faltered in the Soviet ranks. Häyhä reloaded with calm efficiency, unseen, almost unreal to anyone watching. Nearby, Iiro muttered, "He shocks them. They don't even know where he is." Simo only nodded. The forest is my ally, the snow, my shield, and patience, my weapon. Afternoon brought more chaos. Soviet forces attempted to flank the Finnish positions, believing concentrated numbers would overwhelm them. Häyhä anticipated the movement, selecting vantage points along ridges and frozen streams. Every step, every angle was calculated. He targeted key soldiers, machine gunners, officers, radio operators. Each shot disrupted coordination, forcing the Soviets to scatter and seek cover. They were shocked by precision, by invisibility, by the sudden realization that the enemy line could crumble from a single hidden marksman. Colonel Laurie, observing through binoculars, whispered to his aide, "They call him the White Death for a reason. Look at them scramble. They are terrified." Iiro gasped. "Is it possible for one man to cause this much damage?" Laurie nodded gravely. With skill, patience, and fear, yes, it is possible. The forest silence was deceptive. Snow muffled movement, but every crack, every snapping twig could betray a position. Häyhä relied on his knowledge of the land, honed over years as a hunter. He measured distances with the eye, calculated wind by the slightest shift in branches, and timed his shots for maximum effect. A Soviet squad moved into an exposed clearing. Häyhä fired 3 rapid shots. The men fell in seconds. The survivors panicked, scattering in all directions. The effect was psychological as much as physical. Iiro whispered, shivering, "They're terrified. Even those who survive." Simo replied softly, "Fear is a weapon too, sometimes sharper than bullets." By late afternoon, word of the White Death had reached both sides. Soviet commanders were confused and alarmed. Reports described a single man causing devastating casualties with uncanny efficiency. They believed it was impossible, and yet they were shocked every time another patrol failed. Major Ivanov, observing from a forward command post, muttered, "How can one man hold an entire line? It defies logic. And yet, it is happening. He must be eliminated." His aide frowned. "Sir, all attempts to locate him fail. Every approach is ambushed. The men are losing morale." Ivanov's expression darkened. "Then he will shock us again tomorrow, and perhaps the next day, until we find a way to stop him." Night fell, and the snow-covered forest became quiet again. Häyhä found shelter in a small depression, body stiff and fingers numb from cold, but mind alert. He cleaned his rifle meticulously, checking the bolt, the barrel, and the iron sights. Each weapon, each round, had to be perfect. Mistakes could be fatal. Iiro, huddled beside him, asked quietly, "Do you ever rest, Simo?" Colonel Laurie, writing his report, whispered to himself, "One man, one rifle, and an entire army shocked into retreat." The forest held its silence, but Simo Häyhä remained awake, eyes scanning, rifle ready. Tomorrow would bring more Soviet patrols, and tomorrow they would be shocked again. The snow stretched endlessly, broken only by occasional craters from artillery and the scattered footprints of soldiers. The forest was quiet, almost impossibly so, except for the faint hum of distant machine guns and the crackle of rifles. It was a deceptive calm, the kind that heralded sudden death. Simo Häyhä moved silently along a ridge, his white camouflage blending into the snow like a ghost. Every step was measured, calculated, deliberate. His eyes scanned the horizon, noting every movement, every shadow. He knew the Soviets were regrouping, anticipating retaliation, yet they had no idea what they were about to face. Nearby, Private Eero whispered, shivering, "Simo, how many did you take today?" Häyhä's reply was quiet, almost clinical. "Enough to slow them, not enough to stop them. One shot, one target. Patience. That is the key." Simo crouched behind a snowdrift, observing a Soviet patrol advancing across an open field. The soldiers moved confidently, their formations tight. They believed that sheer numbers would shield them from death. They were about to be shocked. Häyhä aimed carefully, accounting for distance, wind, and snow reflection. His breath came in shallow clouds as he steadied the rifle. "Now," he whispered to himself. A single shot rang out. One soldier collapsed, confusion spread. Another shot, another fall. The Soviet patrol hesitated, unsure of the source of fire. Häyhä repositioned quickly, unseen, striking from another angle. Eero's eyes widened. They can't see him. How? Häyhä only shook his head. "They are blind. Snow hides me. Patience protects me. Fear guides them." By midday, dozens of Soviets had been felled. Commanders were shouting orders, trying to regroup. Major Ivanov was beside himself, watching through binoculars. "Where is he?" he barked. "This is impossible." His aide replied nervously, "Sir, reports say one man is responsible. They call him the White Death." Ivanov clenched his fists. "We are being shocked by a single sniper. He cannot be stopped with conventional tactics." The psychological impact was immediate. Soldiers whispered in fear, stepping cautiously, scanning every tree line and snowbank. Every sound made them jump. Every shadow seemed like a threat. Häyhä's invisible hand had shaken an entire battalion. Häyhä moved deeper into the forest, using his knowledge of terrain to exploit every advantage. Frozen streams, ridges and snowdrifts became both shield and perch. Each sniper's position was chosen for maximum visibility and minimal exposure. He was patient, letting the enemy move into his calculated field of fire. Eero, exhausted but eager, whispered, "Simo, are they afraid of us?" Häyhä's gaze remained steady. "No, they are afraid of me, and fear kills faster than bullets." Another Soviet patrol approached. Häyhä's rifle cracked again and again, each shot precise, each kill deliberate. The soldiers scattered in panic. Reports of the White Death spread quickly through the ranks, shocking officers and men alike. Colonel Laurie, observing from a ridge, shook his head. "He is unstoppable, almost supernatural. One man against a battalion, and he shocks them into retreat." Eero whispered, awed. "Is this even human?" Häyhä did not answer. For him, it was simply duty, every shot protecting his homeland, every kill slowing the advance of the enemy. The afternoon brought heavier Soviet pressure. Artillery began to target suspected sniper positions. Häyhä kept low, using snowdrifts for cover, his rifle ready, patience absolute. Every shell that landed around him was a reminder. One mistake, one exposure, and it would be over. Yet he continued to fire. One by one, officers, machine gunners, and soldiers fell. The Soviets were shocked by the precision, the lethality, and the invisibility of the sniper. No one could find him. No one could predict where the next shot would come from. Nearby, Eero muttered nervously. They will eventually find him, won't they? Häyhä's eyes scanned the tree line. Perhaps. But until then, I will shock them again. And again. As evening approached, reports of the White Death had reached Soviet headquarters. Panic was spreading. Officers argued, trying to develop strategies, but every plan failed when the sniper remained unseen. Major Ivanov stared at his map, despair in his eyes. They send hundreds, and yet he shocks them all. This is impossible. His aide murmured, "Sir, perhaps we are fighting a ghost." Ivanov slammed his fist on the table. A ghost, a single man, shocks my entire army. Meanwhile, Häyhä rested briefly in a hollow, rifle beside him, scanning the horizon for movement. Cold bit at his fingers, his body ached, but his mind remained sharp. Every calculation, every observation was a step toward survival and continued resistance. Night fell, and the forest became silent again, but fear lingered. Soviet soldiers whispered about the phantom sniper in the snow, the White Death who had shocked them beyond reason. His legend grew with each patrol, each ambush, each perfectly placed shot. Colonel Lorry wrote in his log, "Simo Häyhä has turned the battlefield into his domain. One man, one rifle, and an entire army is shocked into retreat." Eero shivered. "Tomorrow, will it be the same?" Häyhä's gaze lingered on the horizon, pale in the moonlight. "If they come, I will be ready, and they will be shocked again." The White Death had become more than a sniper. He was a symbol of resistance, precision, and the terror of invisibility. The Soviets had learned to fear him, not merely for his skill, but for his relentless patience and uncanny ability to shock entire battalions. The cold was relentless. Snow lay thick across the forests and fields, reflecting pale winter sunlight that made it almost impossible to spot the hidden sniper. Simo Häyhä moved like a shadow through the white expanse, rifle in hand, eyes sharp, senses alert. Every step, every breath was measured. The enemy could be anywhere, but they had no idea where he was. Nearby, Private Eero, exhausted yet alert, whispered, "Simo, today feels different. They've reinforced the front. Do you think they've learned?" Simo shook his head slightly, voice calm but resolute. "They may have learned fear, Eero, but fear is our ally. They will be shocked again." Reports reached Soviet commanders that hundreds of their men had fallen to a single sniper. Panic and disbelief spread. Officers debated strategy, but their efforts were futile. Häyhä's stealth and deadly accuracy made him nearly untouchable. Major Ivanov slammed his fist on a map. "How can one man cause such devastation? He shocks our troops, breaks our morale, and disappears without trace." His aide whispered nervously, "Sir, it is the White Death. They call him that." Ivanov muttered, "Then this White Death will be our undoing if we do not adapt. But how do you fight a ghost?" Simo moved along a ridge, observing a Soviet patrol crossing a frozen river. Each soldier was visible against the white snow, but they believed themselves safe in numbers. Häyhä adjusted his iron sights, accounting for distance, wind, and bullet drop. His body froze in concentration. He fired. 1, 2, 3 men fell. Confusion erupted. Survivors scrambled for cover, uncertain where the shots came from. The forest seemed alive with unseen death. Eero whispered, trembling, "They can't see him. They can't find him." Simo's eyes scanned the tree line. "No, and that is how we shock them. Patience, concealment, precision. The afternoon brought more intensity. Soviet artillery sought to flush out the sniper, shells crashing around him. Häyhä pressed into the snow, blending with his surroundings, letting every blast pass overhead. One misstep could mean death, but he remained calm, calculating, ready for each approaching soldier. Shots rang out. Officers, gunners, and patrols fell systematically. The enemy was shocked not only by the precision, but also by the invisibility of the sniper. No one knew where he was, yet every shot brought terror. Colonel Laurie, observing from a ridge, muttered to his aide, "One man, one rifle, and entire patrols are broken. He shocks them beyond reason." Ira whispered, "It's unreal, like he's everywhere at once." Laurie shook his head. As night fell, Häyhä prepared for a final shift. His body was numb, but his mind was sharp. He cleaned his rifle, checked ammunition, and mapped positions in his head. Every shot counted, every patrol mattered. He knew the Soviets would send scouts to find him, yet they could not predict his next move. The forest was silent except for distant artillery. Häyhä slipped into a hollow, rifle ready. He observed a Soviet officer moving along the ridge. A single, precise shot ended the officer's life. Panic spread. The Soviets were completely shocked by the sniper's effectiveness. Iro, awed, whispered, He shocked them again, every time." Simo simply nodded. "That is the way of the White Death. One man can change the battlefield." February 1940. The end of the Winter War approached, but Simo Häyhä's legend was cemented. Finnish lines held against overwhelming odds. The Soviets remembered the invisible marksman who had shocked their troops and broken morale with precision, patience, and unmatched skill. Colonel Laurie wrote in his journal, "Simo Häyhä has done what no one believed possible. One man, armed only with a rifle, has shocked entire battalions. His name will live long after this war." Häyhä, quiet and modest, continued his work, focused on the battlefield and the duty to his country. He did not seek glory, he only sought to protect his homeland. Yet every Soviet patrol, every retreating officer carried the memory of the White Death, shocked and terrified by the invisible sniper in the snow. His methods, his patience, and his lethal skill became a blueprint for future snipers worldwide. Häyhä's kills, over 500 confirmed in less than 100 days, demonstrated how one individual could shock even the most disciplined army, shifting the psychological balance of war. Private Iro, reflecting on the months spent with Häyhä, whispered, "I don't know how he does it, how he stays alive while shocking everyone around him." Häyhä's calm voice replied, "It is not luck. It is focus, discipline, and respect for the weapon and the forest. One must always respect both life and death." By the final days of the Winter War, the Soviets had learned caution, the Finnish troops had gained hope, and the legend of the White Death was immortalized. Simo Häyhä returned to his farm, a hero who shocked not by flamboyance, but by quiet, relentless efficiency. Even decades later, military historians would study his techniques, marvel at his patience, and note how one man could shock the enemy so completely that fear became a weapon in itself. The forest remained silent, the snow untouched except for faint trails. But the echoes of Häyhä's rifle, the fear he instilled, and the legend of the White Death endured. He had shocked the Soviets, protected his homeland, and left an indelible mark on history.